this is Captain Dave with Simple Plan Trucking. My wife Brooke is asleep in the truck right now. She's going to be upset with me that she missed this very special interview. I'm here today at the Plaza Building at Prime Terminal in Springfield with Brooke's trainer and our good friend Amanda Whitfield.
Hello.
Amanda is the first in a series of interviews that we're going to create called Get to Know Your Trainer. And it's all in an effort for you who may be thinking to come to Prime to get to know some of the trainers and understand a little bit about them and see if it's someone that you may be trying to reach out to set up to train you. Now, it's important to understand that at Prime, it's okay to reach out ahead of time and arrange a trainer for PSD training, but they really don't want you to coordinate that while you're here, after you've arrived.
Yes.
Prime has a system in place where once you're here, they give you a series of questions to assess your personality, and then they also have the trainers take the same assessment, and then they try to match people up based on that. That can work, and it has a lot of success with some people. But you are always free, as you're thinking of coming to Prime, if you're aware of a trainer, to try to reach out to them and see if they may be willing to train you. And so this is a tool for you to do that. Otherwise, you probably would never know who the trainers were till you got here. So today I'm with Amanda. And Amanda, tell us a little bit about you and where you're from and how you got into trucking and just your whole journey up to this point.
Well, I'm actually from Springfield, Missouri, so I pretty much grew up here. And I started at Prime, so years before I got my license, I sort of thought about it. It really wasn't that serious, but at the time I was dealing with some health issues, and it was like, man, here's something else that people are out making good money. Here's something else that I can't do. It's restricted to me. So it was actually about 7 or 8 years later, an instructor from Prime came into where I worked, and he was my regular customer, and he started talking to me about it, and he had no idea that I'd ever even thought about it. And I really hadn't been that serious. It was more sort of like, almost like a little chip on your shoulder.
Sure.
Like, there's something else I couldn't do, and I thought, let me do some research because I am really thinking about this. I was in a place where I really wanted to make some money and get out of debt. I had some debt from school and some, medical expenses and things like that. And I had an easy job, but it was kind of a dead end. There really wasn't a place to go from there. I was working 2 jobs always. When I left one job, it was just kind of always the full-time job and the part-time job. So I was really motivated to do something to start making better money, and going back to school and getting into more debt and going to school for 2, 4, 6, 8 more years just didn't seem like a practical option to me. So, I did some research and I decided to come get my license at Prime because it's no money up front, right? You don't pay for it. I mean, you pay for it in the long run, but it's not costing you money, so I could reskill myself for free. And that was important. I wanted to do something where I was actually using a skill, not just,
of course,
let me get a piece of paper and try to convince somebody I can do it. And I also like that, how much you make is based on your skill. So I did, I'd never driven a large vehicle, never backed a small trailer or anything like that when I came. So I got my license here. I did all of my training here. So I started about 2.5 years ago. I was probably about halfway. I spent about half that time training, maybe almost about 1.5 years I've been training. So for me, it was a great option. I've loved it. I've had really good experiences at Prime. So I feel good telling people, hey, if you're thinking about it, check out Prime's program.
And I love what you said. Just want to comment on something that you just said about you wanted to have a skill that was based on your ability to do things and not a piece of paper saying, let me convince you what I can do. And it seems like that's the way we're moving in the world. I went to college long ago, not because I was an exceptional student or had any reason being there, but because my parents said, you're going to college.
That's the thing to do.
Right. And so, I got a degree, a very nothing degree and very average grades, and my college degree did absolutely nothing for me. So I, like you, I got to a point in my life where I said, I want to do something where I have a skill set that says I am qualified to do this and I'm compensated on what I've learned to do. And
yes, exactly.
Trucking is just one avenue you can explore or go down. I tell young people all the time, go into plumbing, go in to be an electrician,
Yeah.
learn HVAC, learn a skill, because you know what? Those people are disappearing. You can't find someone to come work on those things when
Right.
you need to.
Right.
And they make fantastic money.
Yeah.
Same with trucking. And so this video is not about selling you on coming to trucking, but I did want to say, I think you're right on with what you said, and I think you were smart to choose something that you can come in and just take off with, and you have.
Yes.
Year and a half later, you trained Brooke.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
good.
funny because my trainer, Daniel, who I'll be interviewing here shortly, he has maybe a little different approach than you two. But what's interesting is both of you get to know your students. And I know from conversations that you look at it kind of like a science, where how can you get better each day at being the best trainer you can be? You know, tailoring your training to the student and what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how you do that and how you get to know your students and your approach.
I think some people are more apt to adjust more for a student, than others. I'm fairly high when it comes to that adaptability, because I want to give somebody the best, opportunity to learn and really grasp
Right.
what I'm teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
I have sort of like my formula. I know it works. I'm always going to stick to that, but maybe figuring out like, hey, I'm explaining this to somebody over and over again, and I'm showing them and it's not clicking. And if I've broken this down to the smallest, bits that I can, and that doesn't work, I'm going to have to try something different. So
Mm-hmm.
for some students, I can draw a picture of, maybe I can't teach them the parallel part, but I draw a picture of it for them on a marker board, and it clicks for some students because they get that different perspective.
Right.
So I think looking and seeing what cues work for people,
Mm-hmm.
it teaches you a lot about how they learn, and it makes it a lot easier on me as an instructor if I can figure out what you respond to.
Sure.
Right? Like I have a lot of students that played sports in high school. They're pretty easy to motivate, you know what I mean? If you go after them, if they're a little stressed, and you start putting heat on them in the moment, give them a little pressure,
Sure.
they respond to that, and they're like, oh, I have to perform because these other students are watching me, my trainer's watching me, right? Some people fall apart.
I understand.
Okay, so maybe I can't put any heat on you, maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe I just need to kind of let you work it out, or, we need to phrase it a different way or whatever. So usually about the time I really have somebody figured out and know exactly how they learn, that's it, they're done.
Right.
They're ready to test. So it's like, man, I just, you know what I mean? Right when you really figure somebody out, that's it, they're done. But, at the end of the day, everybody doesn't take the same approach. And so I do think one thing that is missing with a lot of people who come out to get their license is a sense of responsibility. Like, I'm here to teach you, if you're my student, but it's your responsibility to get your license. It was my responsibility for me to earn my license. So yeah, I could ask my trainer questions, but it was all on me. It was my responsibility to make sure I was learning. If I was struggling, I had to figure out, okay, how do I articulate these questions? Or what can I think about when I go home? What can I do better tomorrow? Because it's not in your trainer's hands, it is really in yours. So I do try to be very particular about learning how my students learn, and there's lots of little cues you can pick up on the kind of language people learn, and
Phrases you use that you drill
Sure,
into their
yeah.
head that if I heard once, I heard it 1,000 times from my wife. Amanda says,
Oh, no.
so
Uh-oh.
even though I didn't train with you, I feel like I did because I hear your voice every single day.
I hope I wouldn't make any mistakes.
And it's always a good thing. So, but yeah, you're right. And we so appreciate you for being, leaning forward and seeing it kind of as a science and how you can get better as a trainer every day. But she hit the nail on the head, folks. It is your responsibility. Industry-wide trucker washout rate is above 90%. They say sometimes at prime it may be 60%. And I often wonder why that is. And I have to believe that it's because we have so many different people from so many different walks of life and different ages and different motivations coming in here. And maybe sometimes they're not entirely motivated, or they don't come with the mindset that I'm going to make this happen. Whatever it takes, I'm going to make this happen. And I know Dan will talk about that because I hear him talk about it on the channel all the time. But do your research, know why you're coming, know a little bit about trucking. Folks, this is an OTR job. This is over the road. You don't want to come in here and on your first day say to your trainer, hey, do I get to go home every weekend? Or when do I get to go home? When you come here to training, you got to know you're going to be here for probably at least 6 weeks until you go home the first time. And guess what? As an OTR job, for the rest of your career in trucking. You'll probably only go home every 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And that's a hard pill for somebody to swallow. But you ought to know that before you ever come out here, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's niche positions and there's different opportunities, but you have to be realistic and say, if somebody's telling me I might only be home every 4 to 8 weeks, let me assume it's going to be on the long end of that and see if I can handle it, and prepare yourself for the tougher version of it. And then, hopefully you can try to make it work for you. But some people come out and they really hardly ever go home. Some people go home for holidays and that's almost it. Their home is on the truck. But being OTR is, very different than being a local driver or just a regional driver, because you're going to see home a lot less.
Is there any suggestions that you would offer to people either considering to come to Prime, or if they've decided to prepare to try to be in the best position they can to jump off as soon as they get here when they get to PSD?
Ooh, as far as like the mindset of preparing for the job, or just the PSD?
We know we want them to study their pre-trip and be ready and make sure you cross all your T's and dot your I's and have your paperwork ready. But mindset. How do you want to prepare? How should they come to be ready to be successful when they arrive?
I think a lot of people have a hard time we all have a hard time being honest with ourselves, right? Like about our strengths and our weaknesses. But you want to come in and you want to be very, very focused and acknowledge kind of like what some of your strengths and weaknesses are, right? Like if you've had interpersonal issues with people at every single job you've ever worked at, that's something that you really have to look at. What was your part in that, right? Like if, you know what I mean? Because you're going to have to be pretty adaptable, and relatively agreeable to get along with your instructor, or your trainer. If you know that you have a hard time taking, a back seat, if you're used to being the authority figure, you have to make sure, hey, I'm okay with that, because I'm going to come in and my trainer's going to be, I don't know who they are. They're not going to be the person I'm used to dealing with. I'm not going to be in charge anymore. Right. If you're very easily distracted, right, that's the kind of thing that you want to be aware of, and kind of compensate for that. But there's a lot of distractions when you get here. Right. But a lot of people get here and they're very social. They, make friends. You're meeting other students. You're here, you maybe meet other instructors, whatever. People are talking about what they're doing, and your experience is going to be unique. So when you get here, be very focused, be coachable, just take on that role as a student and let that be 100%, right? Once you get your license, you might go on and get your license and train with that same person to help you get your license, or it might be somebody different, but you are still that student. And so it is a very, very independent job. There's a lot of responsibility, so you have to build that as well, but you have to respect and trust the person that's training you to do the job as well. If they weren't successful, they wouldn't be training you to start with.
Yeah, and that's so true. And then, you touched on something about personalities and there are people that want to get into trucking because they say they're shy or they like to be by themselves, and they enjoy being alone, and they think, oh, trucking's going to be great.
Yes.
But the truth of the matter is, especially when you're getting your CDL, there's an old phrase that goes, cooperate and graduate, right?
Yeah.
You have to come and be willing to take a back seat, be coachable, be teachable, listen to your instructor. Your instructors want you to be successful. At times, it may feel like they're being tough on you, but guess what? That's to make you pass your CDL. They're not being jerks, they're doing their jobs. And there were many days I went away from the pad and I felt like I didn't have a good day. But you know what? When I came back the next day, I was in a better position than I was the day before. So
yeah, you learned from what you did wrong. Yeah. You went back and you reflected on yourself and evaluated and made a commitment to come back and do better.
And they will be friendly at times, but their job is not to be their friend. It's to get you to graduate and to get your CDL.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I don't mean to make it doom or gloom. I had a great experience and I loved it, but it is challenging at times, and it's because you're learning a skill that you didn't have before. So that's it. I wanted to get with you today and just take a few minutes to get to know you. This is the first in our series of Get to Know Your Trainer. We've got a couple more we're going to do today. Amanda, is there any contact information you would like to share where people may be able to reach you either by email, or I don't know if you want to give out your cell phone number if they're interested in talking to you about having you train them at Prime?
So probably the best contact at this time, since I don't have an email set up yet, just specifically for referrals, is you can reach out and leave a comment actually on a new YouTube channel that some of us have started. So you guys can go to Unapologetic Instructors and leave a comment on any one of those videos, or we can reach out and follow up with you there.
And they can leave a comment on my channel as well.
Absolutely.
And I'll pass it on to Amanda that way as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so that's at least a point of contact. And I'll be setting up an email, as a lot of these instructors here that you guys are going to be seeing on our channel, Unapologetic Instructors, we'll be setting up so that you guys can reach out to us directly with questions as well. And that's open for lots of people who have questions that maybe don't necessarily want to train with me, but you guys might have a question for me and come in and train with somebody else. That's perfectly fine. Myself and a lot of other instructors also just make ourselves available as a resource to help you guys out. So
fantastic. Well, thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time. And
sorry we missed out on Brooke, but
yeah,
maybe next time.
Great instructor. Consider Amanda, and we'll be talking with you again. This is Captain Dave with Simple Plan Trucking. Take care. Out for now.